because of the biometric voter identification, they must tally with the number of people who turned out to vote. So when you're looking at those, so when they give a percentage of the number of voters who voted, and you look at the tabulation in the final Form 34C, those numbers have to merge, and they have to make sense, including the Form 32As. That is why the turnout is critical. It gives transparency, and it helps to give credibility to the process. And that's why they have to tell the public, you have to know how many people are registered as voters, then you know the percentage of voter turnout, you calculate that, and then you can determine how many votes were cast, how many were rejected. All those numbers, when you compute them, they have to add up. When they don't, my lords, then there's a problem with that election. Thank you, and I think I will cede the ground to Senior Counsel to close it in the next 1 minute.
Very briefly, Honorable Chief Justice and members, Justice of the Supreme Court, on the issue of violence at Bomas and the impact and the character of these 4 commissioners. Let the record of this honorable court show the following: that at the time preceding their walking out, the posting of the results on the screen had ceased, had stopped. So all they wanted to know, these 4 commissioners, is to be given the opportunity to peruse the results of these 27 constituencies so as to satisfy themselves as to who the winner of the elections was, number 1. And number 2, whether that winner had reached the constitutional threshold of 50 plus 1. That's all they wanted to know. When that was denied, they had no option but to refuse to be a party to the violation of the Constitution. So as I sit down, let this record of this honorable court show that the results that were announced, the declaration, was not a declaration, just one. That declaration by the chair of the Electoral Commission was not a declaration of the Commission. Therefore, they are the majority, they do not support it, they ask for nullification of that declaration. I thank you.
We'll go fast. Ms. Tangatia.
Madam CJ, I'll cede ground to the head, who was the former head of the bar, Attorney General, okay. Emeritus.
Okay.
Madam Chief Justice, members of the court.
My Lady Chief Justice, I have an objection to the... I have an objection to my learned senior's application, which he indicated earlier. My lady, we will of course be guided by your directions, but I rise to oppose the application by my learned senior, Mr. Gitu Muigai, to present evidence to controvert the submission by Julie Soweto. My Lord, my lady, the indication was that they'd been taken by surprise and should get a chance to present their view. They were not taken by surprise and can't be taken by surprise because...
My lady, if I may, this is a very awkward moment for me to interrupt the teacher who taught me procedure. I thought that one could only respond to an application that has been made, not before it is made.
Of course, it has to be made before. The objection has to be made before.
Can I make the application now?
No, there's no point to it. He had indicated he was holding the application so that it has been indicated. So my objection is, and his own ground, that he needs to be replying to something that he had never known. That picture was taken from the portal of the IBC. So he's not taken by surprise because it's their own picture on their own portal, and it's still there now as we talk, as we object. But secondly, this is the first time in many years that I have ever seen a party asking to rebut their own evidence. And that is an oxymoron that reflects accurately the state of their records. But I stand guided and would gladly withdraw my objection if the court wishes.
I think where we are coming from, Senior Counsel, our teacher, Mr. Firoz Noronji, is that when the two forms were displayed, they wanted to respond because they said it's new evidence. And you saw the bench resistant to begin with, but we went to the records to find out whether it is among the forms that were submitted here, especially in the affidavits of Dr. Celestine, Mr. Arnold, and we found actually it is new evidence. That's why we allowed them. It is not an objection. It's a clarification because they said this is new evidence that they had not seen before. It is in that context.
Much obliged.
Yes, yes, so 5 minutes.
All is well that ends well. Mr. Mahat will give the explanation. Thank you very much, Milady.
Your Ladyship, Madam Chief Justice, Deputy Chief Justice, and Associate Justice of Supreme Court, I wish to respond to 3 very quick issues that were raised by my learned colleague, Ms. Julie Soweto. The first one relates to a form that was shown this court. I will want the form to be projected. We will. Whatever that was projected from the portal, that is what we want the court to see. What Ms. Julie Soweto showed. You could go, please go to Jose Camargo. I want to produce to the court the original form 34A. Yes, you can see. It's okay. I want to produce the form 34A, the original form 34A, and I want to inform the court that the name Jose Camargo on that form is an overlay. Jose Camargo, the register of the QR code, that was printed by Smartmatic International, and it was printed in the name of Jose Camargo. You can show? The register is available.
We were very patient the way Mr. Mohammed addressed the court earlier. Very, very persuasive. But for good order and not to interfere with his submissions, we kept quiet. And if you look back at the record, a lot of what Mr. Mahat was saying was actually giving evidence. He was talking using the word we. This is how we do it. The trajectory which he is taking, without a witness to tell us the kind of information he's going to give us, is going to put the court in a very difficult position. I think he should transform himself to a witness, and we begin to cross-examine him. because, and this is very serious, either we practice law the way we understand the law, or anybody can confront the court with any document at any time. I understood Mrs. Soweto to be giving an explanation in response to a question by the court. And similarly, Mr. Mohammed was responding to question by the court. And therefore, he had some latitude. But now we are entering a different universe where he is now going to produce evidence. He is saying how the picture was taken. There is no certificate, and this is electronic evidence accompanied by an original. I think it is very, very dangerous territory. And unless some clarity is given on this matter, it is going to be very difficult to operate from now.
My lords, what we are trying to do is to show you documents in our own affidavits in response to documents produced from the bar. Ms. Soweto never produced the document she showed you in any of her affidavits. When we now invite you to look at the original and to make the argument that my learned friend is about to make, that there is a deliberate misrepresentation of what the original document looked like. So we are treated to this attempt to block that fact from the court. This is not a legitimate objection. This is an attempt to interfere with legitimate evidence that is on record.
Okay. Let's give it directions, because we'll be here until tomorrow and we don't have this time. Senior Counsel.
Yeah, just one point. And I'm normally very quiet, and I continue to be very quiet. But the good professor has misunderstood Ms. Soweto completely. It is not this document which is in question. It's the way the interference is being done, how this document is changed to another document twice or three times. I think the good professor will be doing a good service to the court. And if he is good coming to court with clean hands, he should first of all say, Mrs. Soweto, what Mrs. Soweto showed us today is not in their portal. That is the starting point.
Isn't that exactly
what that is the starting point.
Bear with us, Senior Counsel. We've come thus far with a lot of discipline and dignity and respect to the court. The reason why we are here, and you saw us take a lot of time to reflect on the application that was made by, I think he started with Mr. Katwa, Keegan, Mr. Kirago, and Mr. Ngatia. We resisted until we established from the pleadings that we have that these are new forms. And indeed, they are entitled to respond to them. So please, if you can just respond without taking us into anything else, just respond to those new forms, because they were not part of the ones that we have before us. We established that.
Thank you so much, Madam Chief Justice and members of the court. The difficulty we were facing in thinking about this, an allegation has been made as relates to this form, and there's an overlay of someone called Mr. Jose Camargo. What we were trying to show the court, that this is an overlay document, and we wanted to actually show the court where this document from Jose Camargo has come from. The document relating to Jose Camargo has come from the QR register, which is distributed to every polling station. And that document is even in the possession of this court. If you look at the scrutiny report, the QR documents are there. So what happened? A PO took an original Form 34A, he had the QR register, and he took a picture of it. What is the evidence that is being given in this court?
that someone called Jose Camargo is interfering with this. And the point we want to make to this court is that if you look at the scrutiny report and if you look at the QR register, which is in those boxes, you will actually find the name of Jose Camargo on the register that has been printed. We've also produced the original Form 34A. We've come with the receipt. And we're being told that you cannot produce your original 34A, that Jose Camargo was interfering. And in fact, if you look at the numbers on the original 34A, it's the same as what the picture of the overlay was taken. So to the question that someone called Jose Camargo was interfering with the portal, it's actually not true. It's incorrect. And the attempt to prevent that evidence to the court is should actually guide the court that actually that is not true. Why will anyone try to interfere with a portal transmitting, and the result he has is the same as what is in the A and what is in the portal? So to that question, we submit that that is not true, and that is an overlay that someone who has taken the picture. We will give the court the Form 34A to compare with the original 34A with the certified copy that the court has. And in fact, we direct the court to the scrutiny documents. That register of opening and closing the KIM is there, and the name of Jose Camargo for purposes of audit trail is printed in there. Smartmatic, Jose Camargo is printed there. So what has happened? Someone, a PO, took a picture on that one. The next point I want to make is the issue of the KIMs. We've been told there are two KIMs kit, which had the same serial number. And we understood our role to this court to give all the information to the court to make a decision. We admit that those KIMs have the same serial number. It was an error that originated at the time of the serialization. But we want to tell the court that those KIMs have different IMEI, they have different IP addresses, they have different polling stations, they have different identifiers. And we acknowledge that that is an error that originated relating to those two KIMs. But there are other identifiers that can identify those KIMs are from our system. And we want to give that information to the court for purposes. Those KIMs are on their way to this court. We will give to the registrar of the court for the court to analyze and to look at it. And if you look at those KIMs, they transmitted the forms as required in the portal, and the A's also are coming, the original A's, we will also give for those three forms. And our role is to give. The issue of transmission has come up. I just want to say this. There were three sets of transmissions at Bomas. One on the forms that has been downloaded, that was running properly. The second one related to the constituencies, that was continuing. The one which had stopped was the one on the tally. And the reason it stopped was, for 3 days, we had only verified 50 arrows. The process became clogged. For you to be able to transmit to the announcement, verification had to happen, then announcement happens. That means that those arrows have to be stopped because verification cannot happen as announcement is happening. We will be running numbers that have not been announced yet. So because of that, and because of the audit, forensic audit that most of the agents were recommending, we had to stop that process to give verification a chance. There was nothing malicious about that. With those few remarks, Your Ladyship, I stand guided. Thank you.
Mr. Mahat, maybe we can have a look at the
My lady,
original
if the
34 that you are showing.
Sorry, my lady, Chief Justice, if the form can be handed over to the court. Excuse me. A moment. Thank you. Thank you. My lady, my learned friend, Senior Counsel Mulgore, has a comment after the court has seen the...
As you continue to look, we'd just like to make an observation. In fact, we are happy that the court receives the document, particularly the Form 34A, and everyone has been quoting Shakespeare and all the rest. I'll just quote some Swahili. Siku ya nyani kufa, miti yote huteleza. If you notice on the 34A, the UDA agent, the second agent, signed the form on the 7th of August, 2022, before the election. Before the election. I repeat, before the election. The other one as well, perhaps might have signed it on the 7th, but it's not clear. So that's all we wish to say.
While at it, Council, just before you go back, and when did the other agent sign?
It looks like 7th, it looks like 9th. Only the IBC and Mr. Chebukati can tell us. It is there.
Yeah, before they explain, they would have to have something to explain.
We have let it go in.
This form, from the naked eye, of course, appears to have been signed by both agents on the same date. And the same date is 07.
Oh, 07 of 08.
07 of 08.
Yes, indeed.
See, well, I thought the point you were making was that the second one signed before the election. As though the first one, if I could just finish.
Okay.
As though the first one had signed on a different date.
No, our point is, and has always been, these forms may have been manufactured elsewhere, before, well after voting, and they all arise one day and they are counted. It is the mess that is IBC, and it is the mess that is the 2022 presidential election that we have been emphasizing. Thank you.
You still want to talk?
Madam Chief Justice, my client is the one who is likely to suffer most in case these sensational matters are not dealt with effectively. Starting with the date, that is more of drama than reality, is seeing a speck in the other person's eye when the log is in the other person's eye. One of the things I think I ought to place on record is this. The forms that are now in issue have not been pleaded, were not tendered, and since they were not pleaded and they were not tendered, we should not be accused of not having responded to them. Point number 2, both agents have made a legitimate or have made an innocent mistake about the date. And I don't see where the laughter is emanating from. Point number 3, the form itself shows a contrary position to that which was sensationally displayed before this court. The sensational reporting that was made was intended to convey a picture which is to the opposite of what the form now before the court conveys. And that reminds me of that very unfortunate day in 2017 at 9 p.m. that again sensational claims were made about Forms 34B from Mombasa, in particular Shangamwe, made also to this court and which led to a nullification of a presidential contest. Madam CJ, there is also one more thing that concerns my client, because again, it has very prejudicial effect. It is what is definition of the commission. I will spend 1 or 2 minutes defining the various ways commission is defined in the law. Commission is first and foremost defined in Article 88. Commission is also defined.
Sorry, if we open the matter now to other things, they will not see an end to this. You are responding to the two forms which were introduced.
As new evidence.
Yes, please don't go to other things that you are not supposed to, because we will not see an end to this.
I still have my time.
With respect, even if you have your time.
For the governor,
even if you have your time.
Thank you.
Just deal with the two forms.
So then, coming back to the forms, my request is this. Please delete from the... yes, the other thing is that all the form now before you has security features. The one that was displayed does not have. The one that you have does not have the name of Jose Camargo. The one that was displayed before the court has that name of Jose Camargo. The original one you now have does not have that name. And all those things were meant to deceive. They were meant to mislead.
We should never have to ask that we remain the way we started. We should never have to ask that.
Particularly from such eminent lawyers. The one that you have does not have any of those things that were displayed. My client therefore becomes quite concerned whether this case is to be adjudicated in the realm of falsehoods or within the parameters of factual contestations. That is a real concern. The minute we allow matters which are clearly false to infiltrate into the record of this court, we are likely to get into a very, very unfair decision. Let this case be decided on factual points and on factual contestations. We say the same about the second form, that the original has not been provided. But as regards the second one, allow me to say this. Before this contest started, IEBC did avail to this honorable court all the forms 34As. All of them were deposited because we did see that correspondence. Consequently, as regards the second form, I would request this honorable court to find time to look for it, the certified copy, and in case, once again, it does not have this JAWS, whatever name it is, please come to this conclusion, that a deliberate effort was made by counsel to mislead this court so as to arrive at a decision which would be most injurious to the first and second respondents. I'm very grateful for the 5 minutes, and I rest.
Thank you very much. With your permission, we would like to go to another segment of these proceedings, the last of them, where we'll be considering the report from the scrutiny or the discovery that was undertaken by the court, and I'll ask the Honorable Lady Justice Joaquin Dongo to take us through that session.
Thank you very much, Madam President Judge. Before I come to the issue of the exercise before us, I just wanted to assure Senior Counsel Paul Mwite that when the 14 days start running, and we are guided by Article 259, when we do work Saturdays and Sundays. So as soon as the time is triggered, in fact, the judges are working all the time. You're the ones who get to go home and rest. When you rest, we go and we continue to work. Thank you very much. So just before we proceed with the next session, it was just a summary of the order that we gave to parties and the rationale for those orders. We received 3 applications from 3 parties, the youth, from the Youth Advocacy Africa. We received an application from Kelef Khalifa, and we also received an application by Raila Odinga and Martha Karua, in which we were asked, the press was sought to undertake scrutiny and access to certain information. After we looked at the applications and the prayers, we then looked at the pleadings and the affidavits to ensure that the prayers matched with the pleadings and the affidavits that have been filed by the petitioners. As you will recall, the court then determined the issues which we will determine, and that also helped us set out the orders for scrutiny, so that our orders were set out based on the pleadings, the affidavits, the issues for determination. But further to that, we also did say in the body of our order that we would not encourage a fishing expedition, and that the request needed to be specific, and that given the 14-day timeline, the court would only allow reasonable, practical, and helpful orders. We also acknowledged that under Section 12 of the Supreme Court Act, the IEBC has already submitted all the Form 34As, and therefore they could be accessed in the court. We also stated that some other issues, some other things that had been requested for in the prayers are in the public domain, and that parties could then get those. We did note that some of the requests or the prayers were unrealistic. Some of them were general and vague. Some of them involved parties that were not enjoined to be before us. And therefore, we granted orders not based on prayers, but based on what we assessed that the court needed to look at in terms of all those criteria that I have set out. And therefore, the exercise that was conducted under the hand of the registrar followed strictly the orders which were given under the hand of this court using that criteria. I think that is a fair summary. Madam Judge President, I will stop there.
Thank you. I think an exercise was carried out, a very rigorous exercise led by our registrar. Indeed, these are people who had not slept for 24 hours working to carry out this exercise of ensuring that there is compliance with the orders of this court. Our staff actually spent a night here. They had to shower somewhere here and continue working yesterday morning. So the report has been shared with Council online, and because the parties who are involved in the requests for the discovery is the main petitioner, the Youth for Advocacy, and the petitioner Karif. We have decided to allocate each one of you 15 minutes to submit on any issues you like us to take note of in the report. That is the main petitioner, 15 minutes. Youth Advocacy for Africa, 15 minutes. Karifa, 15 minutes. Then we will have IMBC, 15 minutes. And because the first respondent is also affected by what is being discussed in the report, we also agreed to give them 15 minutes. Yes, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Your Ladyships and my Lord. I'll be as quick as possible, and I would like to indicate that I will share the time with my colleague Jackson Awele, who will deal with what happened at Forodha, while I will deal with everything that happened at IBC Anniversary Towers. The report the court has given runs into 178 pages, but we worked overnight to provide written observations to the court, which we filed this morning, and so all parties are actually aware of whatever it is the first and second respondents, petitioners have observed. Very quickly, IBC confirmed that the RTS, the results transmission system, runs on 8 servers, of which one is a virtual server.
Counsel,
Yes?
you say you filed something?
Yes, we filed written observations with court, and we have a few copies.
Just wait until we get our copies. Are they in the
We
bunch?
filed them
Just
before.
give us
Okay.
a moment there. Yes. If you say you have extra copies, you could give us, so as to save on time.
Yes,
We do not have a copy. If Learned Counsel could be kind enough and serve us a copy.
for the principal respondents, we can give you one of each.
This shows the time we are given to respond.
We served them before 9 o'clock this morning. Electronically. The only thing that there'll be a problem is some of the images will not be very clear, but when you do have time, the images at the end.
Just hold on, Counsel.
Okay.
You could start.
Yes, Jackson, you could also perhaps upload it so that those who don't have a copy can see where we're reading. I'll go to the first observation on page 2, summarize the first paragraph. IBC confirmed that the results transmission system runs on 8 servers, of which 1 is a virtual server, and the 7 are Docker containers, which is a server within a server. The IBC denied agents access to the Docker servers. We were therefore unable to proceed further with that exercise. Paragraph 2, the...
Counsel again.
Yes.
The copies you've given us are not filed.
They're not filed, the electronic ones are filed. I anticipated having to provide 1 or 2 people with copies, but the electronic ones are filed, very clear. We have a receipt.
Yeah. It's all right.
Okay.
Counsel, I think we had already given directions that we expect oral submissions.
I am making oral submissions.
Yes, so
Okay.
I'm just saying, let us not worry too much
Okay.
about written reports, who has served who.
Okay.
You're letting the court know what you think of the exercise so that we can take those submissions into consideration. And that should apply to all the other parties.
I stand guided. Thank you very much. I go to paragraph, or I'll just make it an oral submission. The virtual image availed for scrutiny was created on the 31st of August, 2022. We therefore state that this cannot be from the same server that ran the just concluded general election. And the image of the server was not provided. The further major observation we make, the KIMS kit was not availed for scrutiny to establish the availability of the embedded scanner application that would verify the image format. So the IBC declined to avail the system documentation. I go on. There was very disturbing evidence of log deletions from the IBC server that was availed, in part, partially availed. These deletions occurred on the 6th of August 2022, which is 2 days before the contested election. We observed that, surprisingly, the registrar's report at page 21, issue number 5, indicates that there were no deletions. We think this is a mistake. It should be looked into. The effect of the deletions, we can upload that. It's on the screen now, that we were able to get from IBC, indicates that, and this is image marked 15, that at the material time, foreigners, including Ogudino, Vito, J. Carmago, Josio, were operating the system. Those are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 foreign individuals. If a forensic image of the server is availed, details of what was deleted would certainly be established. The other major observation, IBC refused to provide a security walkthrough to highlight key security controls to determine whether Form 34A could be tampered with during transmission at what point. So we hit a dead end, contrary to what their counsel repeatedly says. They are transparent, it's available. They're even giving the court, donating to the court KIMS kits to look through. Finally, or well, not finally, IBC refused to grant access to the forensically imaged servers. Instead, the server administrator projected the vSphere, which is the Virtual Server Application Management System, on the whiteboard to demonstrate the access to the servers. The vSphere indicates that the virtual RTS server was created and modified on the 31st of August at 2022. In effect, no information from a server was provided to show what happened during the 2022 general election. Number 11, a couple of manuals were provided, or bundles of documents. We'd like to point out that of interest to the court would be that at page 77 of one of the manuals titled Information and Communication Technology ICT Policy, at page 77 and 78 is a list of 77, a list of 41 individuals, starting with Dixon Kwanusu, and second one Abdi Dahir Abdi Malim, who are described at the top of the page as national returning officers, an office unknown to the law or the Constitution. I would request that the court takes note of that in particular. And paragraph 14, on the 1st of September 2022, the deadlock over the servers finally came to a head when IBC wrote to the Registrar of the Supreme Court enclosing a letter dated 31st August 2022 from Smartmatic International BV, the same company that Carmago comes from, enclosing in which the letter states, amongst other reasons, the image of the NTC servers containing software owned and copyrighted by Smartmatic and thus IB protected. Providing full access would infringe our intellectual property rights. That brought to the end that matter. Smartmatic, Carmago, whoever they are, wherever they are from, have indicated that they will block and refuse access to the servers completely. I then move to the images. Certain images were shared by IBC. I'm not certain that they were aware of what they were serving. There was always a staff that seemed quite unqualified in whatever they were doing. They couldn't operate the systems or pretended they couldn't. but they did share image number 6. The first image I showed was the image of deletions, but the one I would like to focus on in this very limited time is image number 6, which is several, about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pages of logs. The logs are from the RTS server, Results Transmission System, on various days leading up to and after the election date of the 9th. In particular, 15th July 2022 to the 16th of August 2022. And I must apologize to bring the bad news not only to this court, but to the entire Republic, that those logs contain active participation of foreigners on the results transmission systems of IBC from the 15th to the 16th of August, 15th of July to the 16th of August 2022. Their names are Vito, Josio, that is the names identified in these logs, Josio, Ogudino, Sisiva, Provisio, and Jacamargo. The copies I provided to the court are much clearer, and you can see the names, you can see the times, and of interest, and I will only highlight certain entries, only the longest entries. I will start by saying those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 individuals, foreigners, in the Immigration Act they are also referred to as aliens, accessed this server 180 times or thereabouts. The longest being Scamago on the 8th of August 2022, Josio, let me deal with the time. Josio on the 9th of August 2022, which is the election day, for 1 hour 32 minutes. Ogudino on the 11th of August 2022, 2 hours 54 minutes. Ogudino again on the 11th of August, 3 hours 16 minutes. Ogudino on the 14th of August 2022 for 2 hours. Ogudino on the 4th of August again, 1 hour 57 minutes. And then the 16th of August, Ogudino, 1 hour 1 minute. I close by saying, what a mess, what a mess. My learned friend Mr. Ngatia struggled so hard to get Mr. Camargo out of the mess of taking control of our elections. In the case of the 34A we've just been talking about, but we've caught Mr. Camargo and all his friends in our election process before, after, and where are they? Only God knows, and only the servers will show us. History is repeating itself. 2017, Mr. Chepkati refused to provide access to the servers. He's doing it again. And of course, please, I ask the court to take note of everything we have provided as far as the DCI has provided to us, we have provided to the court. These are individuals whose identities are not even known. They travel on, or they provide expired passports when interrogated by the police, and all the rest of it. I would not repeat any more of that. On the 8th of, yes, I'm happy to be pointed out, the logs will also show that on the 8th of August 2022, Camargo accessed the portal while in Venezuela. So our elections were conducted from Venezuela. The Venezuelans decided who won. Mr. Chepkati was just the mouthpiece. Thank you.
My Lady the Chief Justice, my Lady the Deputy Chief Justice, my lords, my ladies, in the remaining few minutes, permit me to take you through our report from the scrutiny exercise carried out at Forodha. And my lord, I'd like to very quickly just highlight sequentially in the order in which the ruling was made.
Did we get your name for record purposes?
My apologies once again. Jackson Awele is my name, my lady. My lady, in the order in which the ruling was given, order number 5 granted the applicants inspection, scrutiny, and recount in respect of 45 polling stations. There were about 16 polling centers, and within them we had 45 polling stations. Now, in conducting the exercise, our focus was on qualitative aspects of the results and the electoral materials that were deposited in the ballot boxes. And one of the things, if I may start from where Mr. Mahat left from, that we were looking out for were the QR codes of the KIMS kit in tamper-proof envelopes and KIMS validation form 44 in tamper-proof envelopes. My learned friend, Mr. Mahat, has urged you to go through the scrutiny report, and that in that report you will find information and evidence about the QR codes of all the KIMS kits and in respect of the ballot boxes that were submitted to you. We hate to submit to you, my lords and my ladies, that in your report you will only find one QR code and one KIMS validation form 44 that was submitted or that was found in the ballot boxes that were submitted for scrutiny out of the 45 polling stations that we scrutinized. Of all the other ballot boxes, the QR code of KIMS kits in tamper-proof envelopes and the KIMS validation forms, form 44 in tamper-proof envelopes were missing. The question is, where were they? In light of Ms. Soweto's submissions, your guess is as good as mine. We also looked for the pasted carbon copy of Form 34A in the ballot box, and in all the forms, or rather the ballot boxes, we did, or rather the book 2 of Form 34A was only found in 27 out of, were not found in 27 out of 45 polling stations. And as a matter of fact, my lords and my ladies, if I had time, I would go through the list, but this represents 50% of the ballot boxes that were submitted to us for scrutiny, missing book 2 of Form 34A. Now, in Vita Primary School, the other electoral material that we looked for was the Form 32A that evidenced voting by using the manual register. In Vita Primary School, Station 7 of 7, 232 people we noted voted using the manual register, and no Form 32A was submitted in respect of those votes. In Vita Primary Polling Station 1 of 7, 260 people voted using the manual register. No Form 32A was availed to verify that indeed the authorizations that the IEBC stated should be given before voting by manual register were indeed given. Finally, my lords and my ladies, in respect of the Form 34A, the carbon copy of the result that went out, my time has run out, my lord. If I may just make that point in 1 minute, with your kind permission. We noted that in the 27 polling stations, in the 27 polling stations that we noted did not have book 2 of Form 34A, they also did not return the carbon copy of the actual results emanating from those polling stations in the ballot box. In other words, the results or the ballot papers in those ballot boxes could not be verified with the carbon copy of the original Form 34A that was used to declare the results in respect of those polling stations in these presidential elections. For those and all the submissions made by my learned seniors and Mr. Murgo, my lord, I thank you for your time and pray that the petition be allowed as pray.
May it please your leadership, the Honorable Chief Justice, and distinguished members of the Supreme Court. My name is Njomo. I do appear for the third petitioner, who was originally petition number 2 before in the consolidated petition. Your leadership, I'll make a brief comment on the report of scrutiny, and I'll focus on the scrutiny that happened at the floor of the House, and my learned friend Njoki Mboshe will focus on the scrutiny at the IEBC offices at Anniversary Towers. Your leadership, we have looked at the report as a result of the scrutiny, and we have isolated some few issues that will urge the court to consider in perusing the report. And one of the notable issues, and I concur with what my learned friend Mr. Awele has observed, is that we came across in a process that I personally participated in what learned Judge Justice Njoki has observed, that it is a process that took more than 24 hours. We came across ballot boxes that did not have original or carbon copies of Form 34As. Your leadership, the effect of that is that the authenticity of the forms appearing in the public portal is then called to question. There are ballot boxes, for instance, I'll give the Mikindani Primary School, polling station number 8 of 9, the report is appearing at page 81, where it is clearly observed that it did not have the Form 34A. We also have another polling station, that is Chepkulung Primary School, 3 of 3, that did not have the Form 34A in the box. So that then the question arises, where is the source, or what is the authenticity of the Form 34A that is displayed in the portal? Because there's nothing to compare with as required by the regulation. Another notable issue that we came across, your leadership, is that there were ballot boxes that did not have seals matching what is recorded in the polling station diary. My lady, what happens is that at the close of polling, one is required to record the seals that are then affixed on the ballot boxes when they are closed, so that the record of the ballot seals as appearing in the polling station diary, when they don't match what is actually presented to the court at the point of scrutiny, that raises eyebrows. Because it happened in one primary school, you'll note your leadership from the report, at paragraph, page 53, Majengo Primary School, it's observed that in the report that all the serial numbers had been altered. The effect of this, your leadership, is that we cannot then be sure at what point is the ballot box opened, so that those seals that were affixed at the close of the polling were changed. Alteration of seals is a serious breach of the regulations that govern elections. Your leadership, another observation we made on the broken seals is with respect to Keheo Primary School in a constituency called Ojorok in Nyandarua County. What the report by the registrar of this Supreme Court notes is that the aperture, this is where the ballot paper is slotted in, putting in the box, had a seal that had been replaced. The seal that was noted at the close of polling and the seal number on the aperture at the point of scrutiny had been altered. This is noted, your lordship, my lady, at page 146 of that report that is before the court. The third issue that we also noted is as regards Book 2 of 2. My lady, the Chief Justice and distinguished judges, Book 2 of 2 needs to be put in context. That the IEBC printed Book 1 and Book 2 of Form 34As. When that was discovered, the IBC indicated that Book 2 of 2 will not be used for purposes of reporting presidential elections. But then the assurance that the IEBC gave was that that Book 2 of 2 will be deposited in the ballot boxes and it will not be utilized. Unfortunately, at the point of scrutiny, there were 27 polling stations from the 45, or rather 47 that were to be scrutinized that did not have Book 2 of 2. The question then that begs our minds is, where did the Book 2s of 2 go? Were they used to report results, presidential elections, or where did they vanish to? Because the factual position is that those Book 2 of 2s were missing in at least 27 of the polling stations that went through scrutiny in the process that we undertook. My lady, another issue, and honorable judges, that we came across is that there were missing counterfoils from the ballot boxes. The requirement under the regulations is that when a ballot is slit from the main booklet, then at least a counterfoil will remain. The purpose of scrutiny will then serve some purpose if you compare the counterfoils against the number of votes that were cast, including the rejected votes. But, my lady, the Chief Justice and judges of the Supreme Court, without the counterfoil being present that you can compare with, then a question then arises as to whether those who are actually the ballots appearing in the ballot boxes were torn from the booklet, because there's nothing to compare with. Counterfoils were missing, my lady, and honorable judges, from Keheo Primary School. This is noted at page 146 of the report, from Keheo Primary School, polling station number 2 of 2. My lady, there were myriad of issues that we came across. In addition to that, with the scrutiny, envelopes, electoral material, these include the ballots that have been cast, the counterfoils that have been used, the register in the polling station, all those electoral materials that the regulations require that they should be deposited in the ballot box in tamper-proof envelopes. But unfortunately, what we came across was that there were very many polling stations from the ones that we undertook scrutiny where all the contents, the electoral material, were not placed in tamper-proof envelopes. And just to give an example of a few, we had Mvita Primary School in Mombasa, that this is noted at page 34 of the report. Polling station, also Mvita Primary School polling station 7 of 7, there were 7 polling stations. That happened also in Mikindani Primary School, polling station number 7 of 9. This is noted at page 80 of the report. We have Chepkutung Primary School, polling station number 1 of 3. We have Kapsusel Primary School, polling station 1 of 3. That you find in the ballot box, the materials are there, but they are not placed in tamper-proof envelopes as required by the law. Your Leadership, we look at those anomalies in line with the provisions of the Elections General Regulations of 2017, and specifically regulation number 81, that require this electoral material to be placed in tamper-proof envelopes and then sealed in a ballot box. When that happens, it is a clear breach of the regulations as required. And then these anomalies, again, it is my humble submissions that I also speak to the requirements on the Article 86D of the Constitution. And my lady, this is clear because it requires electoral system to be accountable and even requires the IEBC to preserve electoral material in a safe manner. When this has not been done, Your Leadership and honorable judges of the Supreme Court, we submit that that is a clear breach of the Constitution and no accountability can then arise in the event where such issues have arisen. My lady, having spent my minutes on the issue of scrutiny at Forodha, I'll now hand over the floor to my learned friend, Joachim Bosche, to comment on the scrutiny of the technology process. Thank you very much and I appreciate it. Thank you.
My Lady, the Chief Justice, honorable judges of the Supreme Court, I noticed that the time was still running as I was walking here. I hope I'll recover my seconds. As my learned brother has indicated, I'll be going through briefly what happened at Anniversary Towers. Just to add that, my lady, we have already seen the gaps from what my brother, Mr. Njomo, has said. the breaches, the illegalities, and the gaps that were there in the collection, the tallying of the numbers. My lady, what we have been told by the first and second respondents, as you will see it happening even as we went to Anniversary Towers, is the attitude of get over it, it's over. Because my lady, and as has been ably submitted by my lady senior Mr. Mulgore, when he was talking about what happened at Anniversary Towers, we were denied access to the server. Our agents were denied access to the server. My lady, and honorable members of the court, when you retire, you will see at page 8 of the report, item number 4, that they said the best they could do was to give us a clone image of the server. When we said, let's proceed, or when our agent said, let's proceed, it became clear that to generate a forensic image, there was the requirement for the development of what is called a forensic image hash. My ladies, honorable members of the court, it was then asked for the IBC because they wanted to give us this clone to generate the hash. What did they say? They said, oh no, the judiciary should generate the hash. Yet, it is the system that they are calling upon us and Kenyans to believe they were in control of. They have no idea how to generate those things, and if they do, they want to take zero responsibility for that job. And that is why, contrary to the requirements of the Constitution, the IEBC abrogated their duty to conduct the IT component of the election and gave it entirely to Smartmatic. And that is why Smartmatic wrote a letter further to the directions of this court, that letter was served upon our firm yesterday. And the letter is dated 31st August. On the right, and this letter should be before this court because it is addressed to the registrar. So I expect Judge, honorable members of this court, that it's before you. Clearly, it shows it is from Amsterdam. And it says that they will not give us access to the servers because it infringes on their intellectual property. What Mr. Macharia called today, the question of what happens to our data? We cannot even verify the election, contrary to the requirements of the Constitution that it should be verifiable. When the Honorable Court gives orders for scrutiny, Smartmatic says they cannot give us that access. We have set it out. It's set out in the report that has been placed before this court, and the letter is there to confirm. What they then go ahead and do is to amend the orders of this court. And my ladies will see when you read that letter that they say that instead, they would like to recommend that the IEBC makes available, and they say the documents that they want IEBC to give us, including some system logs, which, as Mr. Mulgore has indicated, not all those system logs were provided anyway. And the ones that were provided, we saw who had access. Our agents did indicate that when we asked, because this becomes very important on the question of access, and that's why the logs become important as well, when we asked, as the court had directed in its ruling, order number 1, that we get a password policy, they said no, it will infringe on the security. And that becomes extremely important in terms of knowing who had access to those servers, in terms of confirming the the code or the policy on change of passwords. They refused to give that information. Again, IBC refused to give us information with respect to the RTS, Results Transformation Systems. Yet they want us to come here and believe what they're telling us with regards to the contents of the portal. Yet in their own Gazette notices, as you will find, there were some points where there was human intervention, and that is why They are unable to explain to this court, which we asked them to do and they were unable to do, to explain how the JPEG photos, my ladies, 2 more minutes? Thank you. They are unable to explain how an image is taken but ends up on the server as a PDF. In their own Gazette notice of 3rd August, which is part of our evidence, the petitioner in 002, they said that in some certain areas, returning officers will be allowed to take photos using their phones and transmit the same to the tallying center. So how then is it that all the photos on the portal are in PDF, and yet they refused, they declined and dishonored this court's order to give us information on the results transmission system? My ladies, my lords, will find when you look at the report that has been submitted, page 11, the judiciary report, that they refused to comply with orders number 1, they refused to comply with orders number 4, they partly complied with order number 3 and number 4. Honorable members of this court, the ICT scrutiny was anchored on those 4 orders. They therefore failed to comply. They refused to open the server. Smartmatic wrote, and to the best of what they could tell us, in addition to amending the judgment, they also say at the very end that even citizens all over the world had full access of these tally reports and were able to add the results, telling Kenyans, we have no additional claim of that information. We can tally like everybody else. It is our humble submission that IBC abrogated their duty. IBC was not in charge in terms of the technical component, and that is why my brother Willis said they played picky, ponky eventually to determine who won the election. Kenya's electoral processes run outside Kenya. We humbly submit that there was non-compliance. We humbly submit IBC failed the test. Kindly allow our petition.
Before I start, we were served with a letter just for housekeeping purposes. We were served a letter that my learned friend has referred to from Smartmatic. It was addressed to the registrar of this court. So for parity of arms, we will wish to also make reference to that letter as we submit. First thing I must say this. IBC, in the report by the registrar, I'll start from page 17. You know the registrar says, forensically captured, compliance task, forensically captured image of the server holding form 34C, not provided. We move quickly to page 21. Virtual server image. All agents were interested in knowing the virtual server creation date. It was established that both the creation and modified date for the image was 31st August 2022, though the technical team at IBC could not locate the correct data store for the image. Very important. Page 22. The agent requested IBC to provide certified copies of penetration tests conducted before and during the election. ICT director and IBC advocate provided certified penetration test conducted before the election. IBC advocate informed the applicants that IBC did not carry out penetration tests during the election period, citing penetration tests are not conducted during the election. That is very important, and I asked the court to find out why it's important to conduct penetration tests. At page 24, it was noted that the containers running in the virtual machine are actual computers. IEBC declined to share further details on the containers. Ask your expert why they refused, and they'll tell you. At page 25, what was the IEBC password policy on the server? The response captured by the registrar. IEBC could not display for security reasons. Number 31, the agent wanted to know why the user says logs in from server 192.168.95.64. There was no proper explanation for this issue. The agent requested to know if the antivirus or anti-malware was installed. IEBC did not respond. What am I trying to say? Just even from the basic information that was provided to the agents for the scrutiny, IEBC successfully exposed how vulnerable our system was. And for the first year, IT students, I'll give you, they can take down note, what IEBC gave as the memory, the capacity of the server that was provided. Memory was 6.4 GB, clock speed was 9.84 GHz, hard disk was 300 GB. The server specifications that they provided us with is less than even the laptops that we're using here. That is what they are presenting to us, that they were hosting the entire election infrastructure in these elections. It was not possible. Why I've put that image? It's very important we know. I talked about the middleman, Diego Armando Camargo, distributing results. That is the person who you are not allowed to see. That is the person who, when the Supreme Court makes an order to be allowed complete access, to be provided the password policies, that is the Diego Camargo who we are being told you cannot access him. That back office, polling station goes to him. He's the one who sends to the returning officer. He's the one who sends to the National Tallying Center. He's the one who sends to the public portal. He's the one controlling everything. He's the midfielder distributing to everybody the results of this election. What he says are the results. You can now remove the portal. You can remove it, please. Having said that, we must note that as the world evolves, technology in elections also evolves. Previously, when my learned senior James Orengo was running in 1979 in Ugenya, people used to stuff ballots and run away with them physically. Progressively, they start changing forms. Now, elections are stolen on technology. That's why I said machines are voting for us. I refer you to a case that I've mentioned in my authorities, Dr. W versus the German Bundestag, where the Germans asked themselves, are the Germans really voting or machines are choosing our leaders? And they said, if the technology does not meet the thresholds of our constitution, do away with that technology until it conforms. In this particular case, we've demonstrated through the registrar's report that the technology that we deployed in this election, even this Supreme Court cannot access it. This Supreme Court order was countermanded by the letter which I have referred to, dated 31st of August. We would like to clarify that such images contain software owned and copyrighted by Smartmatic and is thus IP protected. Providing full access will infringe our intellectual property rights. This court can make orders even to our most highest national intelligence bureau. And those intelligence agencies have provided to our courts under cover or confidentiality their intelligence reports. Why can't Smartmatic do it? Why are they ignoring the court order? Why are they saying we'll not give you? Then they go to Venezuela or wherever they are and keep it to themselves. Are we going to ignore it? I pray that we do not. If it reaches a point that elections are not transparent even to the Supreme Court, and I draw inspiration to the provisions of our laws that provide once a petition is filed, the entire infrastructure of that election, ballot boxes, ballot papers, forms, are submitted to the courts. Ask yourselves, have you been given access or have you been handed over to as a court the entire election infrastructure for the presidential elections 2022? The answer is no. It is in the hands of the Smartmatics, and they've said they shall not give you. Do what you want. On to the scrutiny. And I thank you very much, my lords and my ladies, for allowing my application for Form 34A, Book 2 of 2 to be provided. This is the reason why we asked for that form. And I'll show you the mischief of what happened. In 2017, The basic ground upon which this court was able to expose the irregularities was through the fake forms. Fake forms were used in the elections. Remember, ballot is the currency, forms are the returns of that currency. What did Chebukati do in this election? He decided to print genuine forms in excess. He printed deliberately without a commission resolution genuine forms in excess in all the 46,000 polling stations. They were not needed. What did he end up doing when the party agents raised it? Mr. Chebukati proceeded to send them to all the 46,000 polling stations. All those 46,000 genuine forms, book 2 of 2. So in your electoral universe, you are now parallel to the genuine forms from book A. You also have another set of genuine forms, book 2. What has the scrutiny disclosed to us? It has disclosed to us that 50% of book 2 was used. I had requested that we be given book 2 in the entire country. And the court in clarification said, limit it to the polling stations in Ms. Celestine's affidavit. And I took it. It has confirmed what I believed actually happened.
Mr. Chair, please point us to the report where that is captured.
No, the reports, oh, sorry. The numbers are found from page, the registrar has not given you the tabulation of percentages, but from page 175.
You see, the submission you're making comes from the report.
Yes.
So we'd like to find from the report where that 50% appears. That's
okay, the 50%, if you look at from page 175, sorry. It gets to 50% when you add them. You must do the addition. There are 27 polling stations.
In the report?
The word 50%?
Yes.
I can mention the polling stations.
But it's not in the report, it's your calculation.
My calculation, yes,
it's
my calculation. It's my calculation based on what the registrars found. Like if you find, for example, Kakamega High School, there was no form provided. For book 2 was never provided. Bomet County, Gorgor School, polling station 2, not provided. Kasagik Primary School, polling station 1 forms not provided. St. Joseph Kapkerich Primary School, the form was used. Chesentum Primary School, form was used. Kamwai Primary School, form was used. So if you add up from the registrar's report, they come to 50% of those forms that went out. Now, to explain it in a layman's language, because this is very important that we understand, it's like saying, I have printed for every polling station 700 ballot papers. But 700. Then you send all of them to the polling stations. And you issue a gazette notice telling polling stations, when you receive the ballot papers, please return to me 700 untouched. Only use 700. What do the polling presiding officers do when they receive these ballot papers? They decide to liberally use them. So that when you go out to find out where the mischief is, the system is muddled. He has thrown at you so many ballot papers, you cannot know the genuine and the fake. Mr. Chebukati single-handedly directed for book 34(2) of 2 to be printed. And book 2 of 2 having been printed, it went out to the stations. The gazette notice required it not to be used. It was used, and the registrar's reform has confirmed. How does it work? Let me use a real-life experience of a movie that I watched, because I have time. It's called The Italian Job. Once they conclude, when this gentleman steals and he comes with many lorries, and you can't tell which lorry has the actual cash, similar number plates, similar design, similar make. So it's meant to confuse you, don't know which is the actual truck that has the money. In simple terms, if I steal money on this table, I steal 1 million, I throw 200,000, all of you scramble for it, and I walk out with 800,000, leaving all of you scrambling for the 200,000. You'll never know the magnitude of what I have done. That is the magnitude of Book 2 of 2 in our elections. The best example before I cede my time to the court. If you've watched The Wolf, it's called The Wolf of Wall Street. When the star player, at the point of blowing it all up, throws money at everybody because he has now made his ultimate loot. He throws money at everybody, and no one can tell what actually transpired. That is what happened with Book 2 of 2 in our elections. That when you start questioning, when you start tracing, you will only be meeting genuine forms. In 2017, when we were questioning, we were meeting fake forms. He threw an extra 46,000 genuine forms into our elections in the hands of people who could not account for them. When we went to look, we were able to demonstrate that 50% of those forms have been used from a sample. From a sample, not denied, either not used or not accounted for, not returned. Are we going to give regime legitimacy after this indicting audit report? I asked this question in the morning. Part of the Supreme Court's function, you give what we call regime legitimacy. The Kenyan people moving in one accord. And nobody has spoke in this court about the margin of victory that is declared. Less than 200,000. After all these muddled figures, after all these illegalities, are we going to say that let us ignore them and give a regime legitimacy to one of the players? I urge you not to ignore your registrar's report. This is too damning. This has confirmed to you that at the end of this process, the only person who could answer the question where the punk was going to land was Wafula Chebukati himself. It was not the instruments that were deployed for the conduct of the elections. I thank you very much for the opportunity to appear before you. Thank you for listening to me. And I thank Justice Swanjala today. He didn't respond when I did my monk. And I donate my time back to the court. Thank you.
You also did not sweat, so we are okay.
IBC.
My ladies, my lords, Mr. Dennis Nkarisha will make the presentation for us.
Thank you, Senior.
Repeat
My ladies,
your name for us. We didn't
Dennis
get it.
Nkarichia, Nkarichia. If I may proceed, my lady.
Yes, please.
I would like to refer the court only to two documents generated by the registrar. There is a list of annexures that has R1 and runs for 42 pages, and there's a big report of page 1 to 178 that covers the entire report. My lady, I'll take you to page 15 of the registrar's report, which provides a table to determine whether the IEBC complied with the scrutiny orders. On the issue of ICT, my ladies, I'll do order 1, 2, 3, and 4. My lord and senior Mr. Wetangula will deal with the rest of the orders. My lady, for order 1, we fully complied, save for providing the owners of system administration password. The order issued by the court had a security exception, but if it was determined it was too risky to provide something, we were to object and provide an explanation. My ladies, my lords, we objected because those persons once identified, their personal security could not be guaranteed in any way. And that explanation was accepted by everybody.
The rest of the documentation that Senior Counsel Mugo said were not provided, my lady, that report says they were provided. The password policy is number 1, the password matrix is number 2, the system users and level access is number 4. Those documents, my lady, were provided, and the registrar noted the same. On the second order, my lady, the one about the server, my lady, I'll come back to it, but there's only one server. Senior Learned Counsel, Mr. Mugo, was economical with the truth, and I will develop it in the responses and queries raised by his agent, Mr. George, who is identified in the annex that the registrars provided. Mr. George is in R2, and he appears as George Joroge, the 13th person in that list. George Joroge, he assigned, he was his agent. So, my lady, access was provided to the server, and indulge me, I read something that was noted by the registrar on page 17, supervised access. Agents were granted supervised access to the live server through an interactive session. All their concerns and questions were exhaustively answered through querying of server for logs, not by mouth, not by explanation, by their own queries to the server. My lords, my lady, I was there. Mr. George, for the petitioners, dictated specific queries. They were run in the system, and he was completely satisfied. That is the registrar's comment, not the IEBC's comment. As such, the statement that they were denied access is factually inconsistent with the registrar's remarks. Secondly, my lady, the demo of the IEBC system architecture, the theory is proven by the registrar. IEBC provided a demo of their election infrastructure for agents to understand. We were not doing it in vacuum, my lords, my ladies. I will leave the comment on the server, my lords, my ladies, for later on. I will now just show compliance. On order 3, from the registrar's report, my lords, my ladies, it was fully complied. You can look at the remarks by the registrar, and it says provided. And critically is the penetration test, what is known as the pen test, under the election technology regulations, regulation 10 and 11, but Senior Mugo said was not provided. My lady, I'll take you to page 18 and 19. Supreme Court Order 3, penetration test reports prior. IEBC provided report on internal network and infrastructure vulnerability and assessment, and certificate of penetration were provided to the applicants and the first respondent. Volume 2, page 1 to 51. It's not a theory. A document was granted, and it had 51 pages. My lady, on Order 4, I can confirm we personally filed under seal all partnership agreements with the court, and the registrar notes as much. So, my lady, contrary to the assertion provided in public by counsel, we fully complied. And the only issue we never complied was partnership agreement provided to court under seal. And the issue of server, yesterday at 1:02 p.m., the court and all parties were issued with a forensic image of Form 34C had delivered and by email, my lords, my ladies. That was compliant. And it had a hash key. And it had a certificate of forensic evidence generated by Martin Nyaga. There is a certificate in court, my lords, my ladies, that the hash key was provided. So rather than move to generalization, at a granular level, we can prove we fully complied with the orders on ICT. Now, I'll pick issues on the party interrogation into the system. And I want to pick issue 1, it's by George. The same George, I said, is an agent of Mr. Mugo, and is proven by the registrar's report R2, the person under 13, for Madva Wangari Karua, George Joroge, and Musa Omondi. That is the George. He asks, wanted to know the user who logged in on 12 August 2022 at 001 hours. I will take you to R9. It's the registrar's report. I have not filed anything in reference to this, my lords, my ladies. And it shows there was no user. It's the registrar's report. I'm not going to give an interpretation. And I will say the comment under, by the registrar, a review of access laws did not show the user or any suspicious activity. The registrar was represented by an IT technical team. So it did not even request us to lobby the registrar, explain to the registrar. The IT team confirmed for itself. My lords, my ladies, they said there was suspicious activity between various dates. I'll take you to comment 4 by George Njoroge. Agent wanted audit logs for user root during the election period. Logs were retrieved from 8th August to 29th August 2022, the day before the election and the day before we did the exercise. There was no suspicious activity. I would like the court to do a simple thing, my lords, my ladies. Compare the logs Mr. Mugo has provided and what is found in the registrar. You will discover there is an apparent discrepancy on the face of those logs. Nothing put on the slideshow is in the registrar's report because it's not. He may clarify where he got that, but he'll simply refer to the registrar's report. It's not, my lords, my ladies. Now, when you move on with the report, you get other clarification by other users, and I want to pick 3 that are quite pertinent. They say there was no way of ascertaining the date of the server log, and that was the opening comment. At page 22, comment 8 by Victor, agents wanted to know when Form 34C was uploaded. This was established to be 16th August 2022. How could have it been created on 31st August, but you are able to go back in history to 16th August to determine when Form 34C was uploaded? It's ridiculous on the face of it. My lords, my ladies, I'll take you to George again, page 23. The agent requested to see the whole architecture. The whole, not only RTS, not only KIMS, the entire IBC infrastructure, including everything retained in that server. IBC database presented the system architecture and explained the transmission flow. How can you say access was not granted when it was granted the entire architecture, not RTS? My lords, I notice my time is running, and my senior wanted to refer to the forever. I will stop here, but if given time, we can take the court through the entire report and answer every query raised satisfactorily, because it was done. Access was granted, that's why comments were made. If access was denied, there would have been no comment. Thank you, my lords, my ladies.
If it may please you, the Honorable the Chief Justice, the Deputy Chief Justice, and other distinguished members of the Supreme Court. My name is Emmanuel Wetangula. I'll be presenting our observations on behalf of IEBC with regard to the scrutiny and the recount that took place on the 31st and yesterday, my Lord. First and foremost, I'd like to thank members of the judiciary who took part in this exercise. It's the most tedious and laborious jobs, and not the most, and most people actually opted to run away. And even in the submissions before, which I'm about to make before the court today, it will be quite notable that none of my colleagues have addressed the pertinent issue. All the results in the boxes matched the results that have been declared by IEBC and the results that were used to declare the president under Article 138.10. My Lord, I'll simply give one example. The application for scrutiny was given by the petitioners, and they identified the stations that they wanted. If this was to be a sample of the entire election, the report bears out the fact that out of the 45 polling stations that were counted, there was no variance of results in the 40 stations, 40 of the polling stations. The report clearly shows that there is no variance of the results with that which was contained in Form 34A. But most importantly, my lady and my lords, there were slight errors which will arise, and it always arises in every election. It's typical to human error. And even to point out this fact, my lord, I was reading the report that was prepared by the Honorable Deputy Registrar. It also has a slight error. And that error was corrected today when we were sent an addendum correcting a mistake that had been done. Number two, my lady and my lords, at page 31, you will note that there's a slight typographical error regarding the date of the election. It's indicated as 8th August 2017. a normal error that any human being will make. But if it were the petitioners, I'm sure they will pray that the entire report be disregarded. But my lord, the most important thing is the environment under which elections take place is a very tense situation. And many a times, slight mistakes will occur. For instance, the sealing of documents, the misplacement of one or two things. The only complaint I've had my learned colleagues, Mr. Awele complain about, Ms. Mboshe, and Mr. Willis Otieno. It's about material not being placed in envelopes. But of utmost importance is, having been present, with every ballot that was counted, it tallies with what was given to each of the candidates. But most importantly, the allegation the petitioners have made and have been running around with is that election results were being taken from one candidate and being added to another. That fact was not proven. This is their case. And if at all there was any variance in the results, I believe Mr. Willis Otieno will have sung for us a new song today, but he didn't. And that confirms that actually the results are believable. And my lords, these are the results that were transmitted through the results transmission system, first and foremost, having been final. Secondly, these were the results that were physically delivered by the returning officers to the tallying center at Bomas. And my lord, if the registrar confirms that from the boxes that the court has sampled, there's absolutely no variance, then we wonder what the complaint is. The slight variances or slight mistakes that were noted, which I will just highlight one of them, that one of the parties picked up on. This is number 38 on the list of the polling stations, Kiheo Primary School. One of my colleagues for the petitioners made reference to it. Despite the absence of the counterfoils, but each of the ballots present matched with the result that was declared for each of the candidates. I wonder how accurate an election can get if this is not it. But mistakes will always happen. And even in the report that is before us, we have noted that actually mistakes actually do happen, and they happen all the time. There was something else that the parties were supposed to deliver, that is IEBC, which was Forms 34A. My lord, a sufficient volume was delivered to the court. I'll just confirm how many there were. There are 32 volumes of Form 32As which have been availed to the court. My lord, there's also the error form, 3 volumes which have been availed to the court for scrutiny, signed by the chair. These are the errors that were noted during the verification and tallying. And lastly, my lady and my lords, before the time runs out, Book 2 of Form 34A, some of it was found in the ballot boxes during the scrutiny, but some of the boxes did not contain, and it's borne out in the report. But the purpose of printing this booklet is actually known to all the players. My lady, my time has run out. I'll just request for 2 minutes to finalize my points, and I'll be done. Thank you. My lady, with regard to Form 34A, Book 2, the purpose why an extra copy was printed, and it's known to the petitioners, but they will not tell this honorable court, was that at any time, sufficient copies of the forms will be available to the agents, candidates, and the media. This is to ensure that the results that were being declared at the polling stations being final were transparent and known to everybody. But a contest arose, and a decision was made by the chairman of IEBC that this material was to be sealed and placed in the ballot boxes. As it will happen, in some of the boxes, and the report will bear it out, some of the forms are not there. And even the report will bear it out that some of the presiding officers made mistakes in Book 1. They cancelled it and utilized Book 2, but still the result did not change. What is important and material is from the scrutiny that was undertaken until very early hours of yesterday morning, the result matches what is contained in Form 34A. And my lords, those Form 34As have been availed to the court pursuant to the rules of the Supreme Court, and they are the forms that were used to declare the results of the election upon the completion of the exercise. Similarly, these are the same forms that were transmitted through the results transmission system, and they match each and every other form that was given. Lastly, and very lastly, there was in one station in Kakamega where the Form 32As were not availed, and affidavits to that effect have been given, and the reason is that because of an outbreak of violence, the affidavits will bear it out. With those few remarks, my lady and my lords, Professor Mugai is asking for a donation of the time, but it has run out. Thank you very much.
Lady, without appearing to interrupt the court's proceedings, with that kind permission, my learned friend has made reference to an affidavit that was given. You've never been supplied with that affidavit. We don't even know about it. And I don't think it is proper for evidence of such a nature to be brought to court at this critical point. And I wish the court should ignore it.
I don't think we are aware of it because we closed the filing of proceedings in this matter.
Very kindly request you to allow me to place on record that we reserve our right to object to that document filed by my learned friends. First, because it was filed without leave. Secondly, because no other party has had the opportunity to do the same. Thirdly, because from what we hear now, it may very well contain falsified documents.
Yes, have we had submissions from the 9 respondents, but now in the...
Yes. Madam Chief Justice will be making a formal application for the document tendered by Learned Counsel Mr. Mulgo to be expunged from the record. But first things first, we shall respond pursuant to the order issued by the court. We were to orally respond,
yes,
not to use that opportunity for other filings. On our part, 2 of my colleagues will make the oral submissions. Please, that was not within the... Please allow us the 15 minutes. We hadn't started making the submissions.
If it pleases the court, my name is Omwanza Ombati. I'm going to present the first part of or the comments about the scrutiny report. And the second part will be presented by my learned friend, Senator Hilary Sigei. My lords, it's important to first appreciate that the purpose of scrutiny is an exercise that is meant for the court to have an impression of how the exercise of the election was conducted. And that's what you said in 2013, Raila. And secondly, also it's important to note that part of the process of scrutiny is to audit the election and make sure that the numbers are backed up by the paper trail. In the request for scrutiny that was done by the petitioners, my Lord, Chief Justice and members of the Supreme Court, the request was targeted. You'll find that particularly in petition number 5, and also the affidavit of Arnold Oginga, paras 81 to 91. That is where the scrutiny was ordered, and when you retire to consider this matter, my lords, I request that you restrict them to their case. Now, in terms of the orders that was given by this court, you'd find that at, there are 7 orders. I'll deal with order number 1 to 4. The first one was with respect to an order that IBC should provide the applicants with copies of the technology system and security policy. This was complied with, except that the applicants also wanted the names, specific names of the system administrators. My Lord, this would not be possible because then you would expose system administrators to danger. The second order is with respect to a supervision of the servers, to have access to the servers of the National Tallying Center, to demonstrate how Form 34C was dealt with. The forensic image of the 34C was granted, and all parties were also given time to interact with this server the whole day. Now, the third and more important, part of that order also was to see whether there was any deletion of any Form 34A at the server. You'll find that at page 21 of the registrar's report, there was no deletion. There is not a single deletion of a Form 34A from the server. And my Lord, Justice Lenola asked a question on how was it that JPEGs were converted from JPEG to a PDF. My Lord, that answer is found at the registrar's report at page 12, and it's important that we read this. It's a short page because a lot of issues have been raised about this. You'll see whereby it says that the Form 34A, you'll find this at page 12 of the registrar's report, that the Form 34A would be scanned by the KIMS kit into a PDF, which was then transmitted into the storage server. At the storage server, the form is processed by an application to check for compliance, to certify that the security features have been complied with, and the PDF has all the features that are supposed to be there. That goes also to page 13. This is important because, my Lord, there was a theory of the middleman that was being propagated by one of the petitioners, and in this scrutiny, we could not find any middleman. In fact, there was a direct link from where the results were transmitted. So the transmission was from the KIMS kit. It would go to the National Tallying Center. One form would go to the National Tallying Center. The second form would go to the constituency tallying center, and the third form would go to the portal. And in this path, results path, there was no middleman. That was the smoking gun that was used by the petitioner, and, my Lord, unfortunately, there was no smoke, and there was nothing that that was found in that. It's important, my Lord, to demonstrate to this court that in the scrutiny, there was first compliance by IEBC about, in terms of the orders of this court, order 1 to 7, as far as was practicable. And number 2 is that in the case theory that was presented to this court completely collapsed. We are all aware, and we saw it, that the petitioner brought a case that was packed in a truckload. However, when that was subjected to scrutiny, it collapsed like a house of cards. So, my Lord, the scrutiny has demonstrated that this election was conducted in substantial compliance with the law. If there are variations, they are minor and they do not materially affect the result. And we submit that this court should validate the win of the first and second respondent in terms of Article 140 of the Constitution. I would conclude and say that from what we've heard, my Lord, it's important probably for those of us who didn't go to the schools that my friend Ayatollah went to. If you read the book of Macbeth, the play of Macbeth, the second play, you'd see that there's a debate. There's a debate about the devil and conscience. I think in one of the last acts, about a servant who's known as Lancelot. And this servant has this big debate on what is it that, he has the devil that is pushing on him and also his conscience. And he concludes that he would rather go, in fact, I quoted this because it's very interesting. He says that my conscience is hanging by my neck, the neck of my heart, and in my conscience is a hard conscience. However, the devil gives me a more friendly counsel, but I choose to run from that friendly counsel. My Lord, with those few remarks, I will request that my learned friend, Senator Hilary Sigei, can continue.
The Honorable Chief Justice, the Honorable Deputy Chief Justice, and the judges of the Supreme Court. My name is Hilary Sigei. My remit in submitting on the basis of the report is limited to the numbers. And my lords, I would dare say, fiction is best told in abstract. My learned colleagues for the petition have taken you through what they called a product of scrutiny. They have intentionally left out what is also equally important besides the process, and that is the numbers. I associate myself largely with the submissions by my learned friend, Mr. Wetangula, particularly with regards to the numbers and the 45 polling stations, which was a subject of inquiry in the orders for scrutiny. Given, my lords, that the election process in Kenya is a process that we are conducting 6 elections in one day, it is natural that errors, especially in counting, tabulation, are bound to occur. But far from that, when the 45 polling stations that this Honorable Court directed that a conduct of scrutiny be done, the recount confirmed that there was correct vote count in 45 polling stations. It also confirmed that all the data that was entered, including, for example, the rejected votes, reflected that which was in the ballot and that which was in the image. It also confirmed that the Form 34As were not altered as it has been submitted before you. I therefore do submit that there are no irregularities in terms of the votes cast against each of the candidates in this particular petition. There was also no transposition the way they had placed that votes from candidate A was taken away and given to candidate B. That product of scrutiny has confirmed that. To be very specific, in Mombasa County, Mvita, polling station 1 of 7, all of them had no variances at all. And in the fullness of time, this Honorable Court, I believe, will spare a moment to look at pages 36 to 49 of the report from the registrar. Majengo, 2 polling stations, no variance, that is page 50 to 57. Mikindani, polling station 1 to 9, no variances were detected at all. In Kericho County, Chepkutung polling station 1 to 3, no discrepancies were found. In essence, what I'm trying to submit, my lordship, is that the numbers complied in terms of what each candidate had been given as at the time of the tabulation at the polling station and what has been provided and availed before you. I am aware that the 32 volumes of Form 34S are placed already before you. Elections and the will of the people is deposed in the polling station as per the minor Kiai case. I urge your lordships and my lady to indeed look at the 32 volumes of Form 34S placed before you, do a comparison with the 45 which we have submitted, and a report has been placed before you that numbers did not change. If they could not impeach on the 45 polling stations that they pleaded, they cannot impeach on the rest that are available before you. When we look at the other stations they have talked about, Nyandarua, Kiheho, my learned colleague, Mr. Njomo, indeed confirmed that materials were all there in the ballot boxes which were opened. His concern was that they were not placed in tamper-proof envelopes. He's also confirmed that the numbers in those polling stations are there. Those were the submissions by Mr. Njomo on behalf of the petitioners. As regards Oljororok, where he quoted that there were no seals placed, when you look at the report of the registrar in that particular polling station, appearing at page 141 to 171, no polling station had variances in terms of the numbers that were awarded to either the petitioner or my client. In short, my lady, my lordship, I submit that there is no evidence that has been placed before you to impeach the forms 34A, which are already before you and which are in the portal, and which actually is where the vote from the voter, where the voter is expressing their choice of the candidate whom they would want to place in the executive office, was done. No wonder Kenya has moved on. I want to beseech this honorable court to allow that which the people of Kenya made as a choice on the 9th and declared on the 15th to be the choice of the leadership they would want to lead this country for the next 5 years. I am a product of that particular election. The Honorable Madam Chief Justice, allow me 1 minute to close. Thank you. I wondered yesterday while Malanet Senior, the Honorable Attorney General Emeritus, invited you to ask the Honorable James Orengo and Professor Tom Agenda, I would invite myself to answer that. I am a product of that election that was conducted, and I am aware that if one is clear, the rest will be clear, as we have attempted and have indeed proved in the submissions that are before you. I request and I plead that this Honorable Court upheld the declaration that was made on the 15th of August 2022 of the presidential elections. I thank you for the time, and thank you. I will donate the remaining 13 seconds to the court. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Council, and I think we congratulate all of you who have been elected to the new office and wish you well.
For you, I am mandated by my colleagues, and I hope on this one I also speak for my very dear and distinguished friends on this side.
We haven't finished. We haven't finished.
We haven't finished.
Oh, you haven't?
Yes.
Sorry, I wanted.
Yes. Sorry, we wanted to say that we cannot accept these documents, unfortunately, because we had closed the filing and we had indicated that we will take oral submissions on the report by the registrar. So the application to expunge them, I think it's around, they were not even filed, they were not accepted, our system did not accept them. I think there is one clarification also from the bench. Justice Venara?
Yes, thank you, President. Mr. Murgor, let's go to R10. R10 is users who logged in recently. On this registrar's report, you projected it. So the one which has the Vito, Gudino, Vito, Provisio, Silva, Ogudino, do you have it?
You would like me to refer to my report?
It's a document. I'm looking at this registrar's report, so if you have it on
registrars.
Yours is blank, I'm sure, if you noticed. Yes, that one, yeah.
Yes.
Yes, so go to, not that one. Page, it doesn't have pages, but it's an extra R10. It was the foreigners' logs. Mine doesn't have pages.
I don't have it.
It just reads R10. Anyway.
Yes.
R10
Yes.
is titled Users Who Logged In Recently. Do you remember that? You projected it here.
We projected it, yes.
Yes, so Vito logged in on July 28th. That's my question. I want to see whether we're on the same wavelength as to the dates. Because you said they logged in during the tally. Does someone have a copy of the report?
We can share a copy.
You can use this.
Yeah, please share a copy.
Take this.
This is
share this.
R10. And to save on time, Mr. Ngarisha, you can be looking at R12 yourself.
Yes. Thank you. Okay.
So, Mr. Murgor, you said in, if I,
that's all.
R10.
Why don't I have this? Okay. Yes.
Yes, so R10, please read for us the dates that these people logged in and the time.
The R10,
yes.
I have the logs start from July 20th to July 28th.
Exactly.
Yes.
So did I hear you saying that they logged in during the tallying period?
That's what I had in my document that I filed.
We are looking at the registrar's report. So how different is your document from this one?
I will check because what we have has those logs.
Remember, we are working with the registrar's report, not any other document. That's why I was getting confused.
This is probably the reason why we filed our own document, because you have extracted, or the registrar has extracted this part, we have extracted the entire. So we could look at what we have.
Yes.
I would speak to the IT people and clarify that.
But
because our logs start from July
but
to
for the registrar's
August.
report, it's July 20th to July 28th.
Yes.
Okay, so I just want to clarify that. That was before the election, therefore.
That was before the election.
Thank you. That's all I wanted from you. Mr. Ngarisha, let's go to R12. I would have expected you, as you come, to answer Mr. Murgor's concern, which was that R12 is a history of delete and removal actions. Mr. Murgor's concern was activity, and you look at the dates, it is 6th of August at the bottom, and then a lot of activity happened on the 31st of August. I would have expected you to say these deletions and removals relate to this action. Mr. Murgor is saying, following the, and now I think we can disconnect R10 from R12, but I'm concerned about R12. What activities were these? What was being deleted? What was being removed? So that you can get Mr. Murugot's point, which is quite of interest to me. I thank you.
My Lord, far be it from me to correct the court. R12 is a series of command that was firstly executed by the IEBC database manager. I refrain from mentioning her name. She has her own security concerns, but her name appears on the record. Then, that is, I would say, if you look at the page, from 58 to 72 on your left, that is the command running. If you look at R12 on your left, my Lord, there is 58, 59 running. That's the command running, showing there was no deletion. If it was put on the screen in color, you will see what then we did once we realized there was no deletion. Mr. George had a specific command, which he said you can delete or remove from a server. Like in a computer, you can either press the delete key or you can press shift delete. So you can either delete or remove permanently from the server. That command was executed. And my Lord, be it far from me to comment on this. The registrar at page 21, James, Caliph Khalifa agent wanted to know if a root user has deleted or removed any file from the server. No records of file deletion or removals were discovered. I could interpret the code where you have 72, it shows the library Docker. You have a server which has various compartments called containers. These containers connect to the server by what we call a Docker. It's just an interface for exchanging the communication. It just is up to there. It cannot find any deletion. Then they executed a graphing. Graphing is where you limit the search range. Maybe you wanted to go to the registry and ask how many matters were filed in June. If you ask the registrar how many matters have been filed, you will maybe start from January to August. But if you ask what files were filed in June, that is the graphing. And that's why you see when you read it, it has a graph. Graph, it's not GREP space rem at root after number 72. There is root, application runs. It looks at the log history. Let me, if you will indulge me, let me explain it, my Lord. After 72, the root application, which is in that specific container, runs the log history, then it's graphed for remove. Is there any history of removal? There is none. Mr. George then requests, let's check for delete.
That is all I wanted to hear. If you say there's no deletion, that's it. I think we understand what the point is.
And my Lord, for R10,
yes,
I could clarify if you'll indulge me.
Go ahead.
If you look at the entire logs, there's what you call an IP address. There's a public IP, and there's an internal IP. The judiciary has its own Wi-Fi that it runs within the court. It has an internal network. Then there's the World Wide Web, everything that everybody can see. All those IP addresses, compared with all the IP addresses in the entire report by the registrar, they are internal IP addresses when IBC was being supported. The same way, if you had an issue with your laptop, you'll take to the judiciary technician. They were being supported because they purchased the software and they needed routine maintenance. And my Lord, before you say this is my own assertion, I will take you back to the registrar's report, whereby they searched between August, the entire month of May to August, for any deletion, removal, there was none. Then they searched for the entire August, whether those users accessed. The answer was none. I will adopt this report in entirety. See, for maybe a few comments I would have, but that's bickering over the minute time, my Lord.
Thank you very much.
Much okay.
Thank you, CJ.
My Lord, just a quick one. The page you refer to as R10 appears to look very similar to this page 16 that I had provided. All I'm saying is that relates to dates in July, and what we received from IEBC contains logs up to the 31st of August. But the two last entries in August 31st and 24th are attributed to Root, who we believe is one of the same gentlemen. But the one I referred to today was August 16th. So it's just a question of how long the log was. Check again on your side. And then finally, on the issue of the deletion, our position is that there was obvious deletion, and what we found there was empty, recently modified file, and certainly not a server that could hold the entire election in the Republic of Kenya.
Thank you very much.
I want the record to show, with your very kind permission, and the concurrence of all my distinguished friends, learned friends, particularly those to my right, who have accorded me the honor of making this speech on their behalf. We thank you most sincerely for all the time and effort that you have put, and your patience, and putting up with some of our not very honorable conduct. We apologize for that, and we wish you good deliberations. Thank you.
Thank you, Senior Counsel Professor Gideon Muigai, Attorney General Emeritus. From this end, and before our team leader speaks, we want to thank you for your assistance to us in the last 3 days. We want to say that if there was bad manners, we didn't see it. These things happen, and there really wasn't bad manners. We thank you for working within the very strict timelines that we gave you. Now, if you felt pressed for time, blame yourselves, because you gave us 14 days to do what ought to be done in a year, if you ask us. And while you take a break today, we continue working. We thank you, truly thank you on behalf of the team and before the team leader speaks. What you didn't know, but you may have realized, is that every day there was a marshal or a prefect from this end to ensure that you kept to your lanes. If you didn't notice, today I was the marshal. The day you laughed most, Dr. Wanjala was the marshal. That's how we work here. We work as a team. We divide roles here so that we don't all speak at the same time. And here, unlike things we have heard you say today, we consider ourselves equal. None of us has a veto power, but of course we have a team leader. We thank you very much. Pray for us as we undertake the next phase. It's actually not the more difficult one. You have helped us with the more difficult part, but it is intense, for which reason, therefore, we ask you that you pray to whatever God you pray to, that God will assist us to continue in the spirit we've been in for the last 1 year, and that we shall have a very high sense of discernment, and that we shall return to Kenya a judgment not less than what Kenya expects. Thank you very much, and now I ask that the team leader speaks to us.
Thank you very much, the Honorable Vice President of the Court, and for being a very, very effective marshal for today. Allow me to thank my brother and sister judges. We actually call it shared leadership in the judiciary. We take up all this responsibility together, and I'm most grateful for that. Thank you, Senior Counsel Professor Gideon Muigai, for those very kind words. All we saw, like the DCJ is saying, is very, very robust arguments and participation. We did not record any bad behavior. Like you see, we did not cite anybody for contempt. So we are very, very most grateful for your cooperation. Allow me also to thank the other people who worked with us round the clock. A team led by the Registrar of the Court, Honorable Letitia Washira, and the Deputy Registrars, our law clerks who have been supporting us, all the registry staff, the executive officers, and the court assistants. We also want to recognize the role played by our security, our police unit, and all the police officers and security people who have provided us with security round the clock to make sure that these proceedings move on smoothly. I may not be able to mention everybody, but also to say that anybody who did something to make these proceedings move smoothly, we are grateful to them. We also want to thank the international and local observers who came to observe these proceedings. We are grateful for your encouragement, and we continue to ask, like the Vice President has said, that you continue to pray for us so that we can render judgment that promotes our Constitution, that is anchored in the law, that nurtures our democracy, that brings harmony to our country, and everything good that is stated in our Constitution. So with those remarks, I will wish you a very nice evening, and as we retire ourselves to continue working. Thank you very much. I'm told that we will deliver our judgment on Monday the 5th. We shall give you notice closer to that day. I don't know, we have only tomorrow and Sunday. But we'll give you notice indicating the exact time when that will be done. It will definitely be on Monday. But I'm reminded that Monday lands up to midnight. So you'll be given the time indication in the notice. Thank you very much. Have a very nice weekend and nice evening.
No, we have spoken through our...
So next week.
Yeah, even now, there's a question I had told the team to work on, which is now